Okay, so in this video we're going to teach the dogs how to come. Now, before I get into the whole exercise of coming, and I'll kind of describe the setup that we have going on. Motivation is important for dogs. Now, if you're a teacher, well, let me ask you this. I know Gavin's not supremely treat motivated, so don't give him any of those treats yet, sweetheart. But these are really high value treats. Now, if you pull out treats, you make sure you give each dog a treat to be fair. Mm-hmm. So if you're a teacher and you have two students and one of them you assign a homework for both of them, one of them students studies, the other student doesn't study, you don't give them the same grade. So if I ask them to come and she comes and he doesn't, and she gets a treat and he gets a treat too, he has no motivation to listen because he gets a treat whether he listens or not. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I'll do is I'll occasionally just pull out a treat and I'll just hold it up like this and say, come. Whoever come. Come. I make them sit. And I say the word come when it goes in the mouth. Well, the second place dog gets nothing. After a while, Gavin's being like, how come she gets all these tasty treats? I smell it on her breath and I don't get any. What is she doing that I'm not doing? When I got my puppy, I have a little Dalmatian puppy, Quest. Well, now he's 9 months, but when he was a puppy, he was smaller than this, and I went to go visit him in my breeders in Portland, Maine, Linda McSherry, and all the dogs, walked over the whelping box, all 10 Dalmatian puppies sat down and looked up at us and none of them made a peep. And the reason they did that is because every time somebody would come and visit, they would want to reach over and pet these really cute puppies. The breeder, Linda, would be like, no, don't pet that one. Pet the one over there that's sitting. So consistently, sit. That dog was going to get it, and then his brother saw it, and then he started doing it. And then his sister saw it, and they started doing it. After a while, the dogs start competing to be obedient. Now, once you say come and both dogs come at the same time, then we give them the treat, both of them a treat, because they're giving us the same end result. But for the short term, just having one treat is a great way to motivate your dog. Now, let's talk about how we want to give a treat. So when I do it, I will hold my hand like this. I want my forearm parallel to the floor. I don't hold it off to the side.
The hand with your treats in it.
I just hold it towards the dog. I'm just showing you the side so you can see the angle. So I want a right angle here. Now what I do is I'm only going to say the command word one time. So I'm going to point this towards the dog. If the dog doesn't come, I'm going to say come one time. If the dog doesn't come, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start lowering I'm going to make a kissing sound. That gets the dog to look at me. Once the dog looks at me, I start lowering it. Keep going on the floor if you have to. The dog gets where you want, raise it, come. So I go over the head in that arc to make them sit, and as soon as they sit, I lower it right away. The second they lick it off my hand, I say the word come. Now, even though they're sitting, I just put them into a sit by that rocking motion. After a while, they're just going to come and sit in front of you. You don't have to raise your hand up. You only raise your hand up to put them into a sit. And don't raise your hand up if they're too far away because you're going to put them in a sit over there. And if they are consistently sitting so far away you have to reach over like this, when they come to you, start pulling your arm back like this. Keep it parallel to the ground. Then you pull the dog over, come. So you can control where the dog's at. All right, so when we do this exercise, we're going to pan around the room here in a second, and go ahead and not hold it like that. We only want to hold the treat out like this when we are the one calling the dog.
Gotcha. Okay.
So when I do this this exercise, what I want to do is I want to have kind of a circle or a square or whatever geometric shape where people are about 7 to 10 feet away from each other. Now when we first do this, we do not want to have anybody eating in the room. That will ruin the dog's motivation. They'll want whatever that person's eating. Yes. So basically we don't want to have the TV on or too many distractions. There's a lot of dogs running by. That's not a good time to do it. Put your dog in a position to succeed by making it easy for it to focus on you. So what we do is we have one person in charge. In this one, I'm going to be in charge. And I get a point to who is going to call the dog next because we don't want to have two people calling at the same time. Now, if I point to you, what you want to do is listen. We want to hold our hand up like this with just one treat in it. Just one. Now, I say when the dog looks at me, I don't want the dog to look at me and have me go like this. It doesn't look like I'm ready. So the dog looks at me and looks like that. It's like, oh, he's got a treat ready to go for me. Now, Gavin is a little bit reticent to do this. He's not super treat motivated, so we'll probably end up using Ruby here for this one initially. But I'm guessing Gavin will be more relaxed when I'm not here, when it's just as regular people. Then you guys can practice this with him. So the person's in charge points to that one person, and that person holds their hand out like this and then just says the word come. Or, since we have two dogs, we'd say Ruby come. If the dog doesn't come within about 3 seconds, then we make a kissing sound. And the dog looks at us, then we start lowering it. When it gets to where we want, we raise it, and then say, come. After we licks it off our hand, we're going to tickle under the chin and say the word come at the same time. All right, are you ready? You're going to go first. So I want you to have your hand with all the rest of the treats just off your side, and then you're going to hold your other hand just with one treat. Okay, so go ahead and say, Ruby, come.
Ruby, come.
Now keep your arm, you're already drifting out, so there you go. There you go. Now make a kissing sound, and then start lowering your hand. Up. Hold it, wait for her to look. Just say her name real quick.
Ruby.
Now lower it, raise it. Now give it to her right away. Say come.
Come.
Now hand to me. Ruby, come. Come. Now if she starts to get up out of her sit, I bend away, especially if they dance. That's my way of saying that's not what I wanted. And as soon as they sit, then I go lower it. Now right there, she went back to who had the treat before, so you can pan over there. Now don't pet her, and we're not going to give her a treat because in that case, we didn't ask her for that treat. Now if she stays there, what I want you to do, keep the camera on him, is I want you to cross your arms like this, and then look up like this, and just stay like that. Come. Ruby, come.
So she need to cross her arms?
Yes.
Cross your arms.
Come. I didn't think she was going to be listening. So what we want to do when we cross our arms, we want to become uninteresting. Because the dog's saying, well, I know you have more treats, just keep on giving me the treats. No, you get the treat for complying to whoever called you. Now, when I do this exercise, I have everybody have about 5 to 7 treats. We want to have at least 3 people when we do this exercise. If we have too many people, if we don't have 2, sometimes they'll just go back and forth. Now, what we want to do is keep on practicing this. Now, right now, we're going to use both dogs. But after a while, if Ruby is always getting it and Gavin's not interested, sometimes removing Ruby will help Gavin be more interested. Also, making sure we do this before Gavin eats. He's more motivated to want to eat, want the treat. That's very good. Once we get to the point where the dog will come consistently in the small circle, then one person, maybe the person sitting here, would go sit in the kitchen. And then that person, we have to yell to that person, and then they call the dog. The dog has to go now beyond line of sight. And every time he comes to that person, he gets the reward. Eventually, we have everybody in different rooms and sometimes different levels of the house. We're yelling it really loud, but the dog realizes if I just go to whoever that person is, they're going to hook me up. So we want to practice it first inside close, then inside further and further away. Once we get to the point where the dog is consistent, then we want to go outside and we shrink down the square, the circle again, so we're about 10 feet apart. Practice that round. And again, everybody has about 5 to 7 treats. So next time we do it, maybe we're 2 steps further away. So instead of being 10 feet, we're at 12 or 13 feet. Eventually, we keep on doing that until we're on opposite sides of the yard and we're asking the dog to come, and they run on over and get the treat. Now, one last little thing. I'm a child of the 70s. When I grew up, we would go outside and play in the dirt. We didn't have sticks. We didn't have any toys. We played with sticks. No, I'm just kidding. But we would go outside and play. We weren't video gaming it up like kids are today. So what I would do is I'd go out, I'd be playing with my friends. When it was time to come home, my mom would yell, "David, dinner." And I was expected to come home. Well, sometimes if I was having a really good time playing with my big Jim, I would just pretend like I didn't hear her. Now, kids don't do that. But the dogs will kind of do the same thing. And sometimes this applies when we call them in from outside. They're outside, they're having fun. We go to the door and we call them to come inside. They're like, but I'm having fun. I don't want to come to you. Every time I come to you, it represents the end of playtime. Yes, the guardian's pointing at Gavin. So what I would do is when we practice this exercise outside, first of all, we create, we're not asking it to come inside. So it separates that part of it as a distraction or a distractor, and we take that away. Next thing I would do is go out when Gavin's outside. Just go out there, have a treat in your hand when he comes over, put him in a sit, say come, and then let him go back to playing. Now, sometimes he won't even come to the door because he understands what that means. So you might have to walk into your yard. And when you're walking around, every time he comes back to you, give him the treat and say come, even if you didn't call him. Again, getting back to the passive training we talked about in the other video. After a while, he's going to be like, man, every time I come to them, something good happens. Just like if every time I go to a restaurant and I find a $100 bill in the lobby, I'm going to eat there a lot. So if every time Gavin comes to you, he gets a ball, he gets a bully stick that you hold in your hand he can chew on, he gets a treat. We have to find whatever motivates your dog. Some dogs like to play pull. So maybe he comes to you, you pull out a piece of rope and play pull. I see that. You play pull with him a little bit, and then you take it away, and then he goes and runs, or let him win and run away, and then you pull out another one out of your pocket, and then he comes up to you, you play pull again, and then your son goes over and picks up the other one and comes and puts it in your other pocket. So we find out whatever motivates the dog, and then give him a little bit of that enjoyment each time he comes to us. After a while, we consistently will get the dog to be able to come. Now, one last little thing about training your dog. Sometimes people ruin words. They say, come, 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 and the dog just, I'm not even going to listen for that anymore. So I use the word here. Now, I work with dogs for a living, and my dogs help me working with other dogs for a living, so I want to be able to say here and have my dog come and not 10 other dogs at the dog park. So I say here, you can say attention, you can come up with a German word or any language word you want, but you see right here, she's coming over because she knows I have the treats. Even though I gave her 2, she keeps on coming over and sitting in front of me because that's what seemed to get her the treats in the past. So dogs, once they realize and they figure something out, they're going to continue trying to do it if we are using the proper motivator. So again, for Gavin, it might be a pull rope, it might be a bully stick, it might be a ball, it might be a treat, something else. Find out what that is. Make sure we've burned off his excess energy, and don't chase them. The more you chase them, then it becomes a game, and then the dog has what you want, proximity to the dog. So the dog, if you're doing this, the dog stops coming to you, just turn around and come inside. Don't get upset with it, just leave. And then go back outside, and maybe we bring Ruby out, and then we practice. And every time Ruby comes over, she gets the treat. And Gavin's like, man, she's always getting my treats. What's up with that? Well, then we give Gavin a motivation to come over. When he does, he gets the treat. So this is how we can teach our dog to come on command. Sit.